Welcome back, dear listeners, to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Avik, and today we are talking about something a lot of people avoid because it's not that catchy. It's not a quote graphic. It's not just manifested. And it's definitely the discipline, structure, and accountability. The stuff that actually holds your mental health together when motivation disappears like a flaky friend. So, the listeners, our guest today is the definition of built different. So, please welcome Jerry Brazie. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. And dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I would quickly love to introduce you to Jerry. So, Jerry is an entrepreneur who's built, bought, and sold more than a dozen businesses that have generated north of $450 million in revenue. But honestly, the money is the least interesting part of his story. He grew up in extreme poverty as one of nine kids and faced serious violence early. So, shot at, stabbed, beaten nearly to death, no degree, no safety net, no roadmap, just chaos, grit, and a refusal to stay down. And today he runs an eight-figure company, a seven-figure company, and he's building the Kronos Group, a peer community for operators who want real talk and real accountability and no fluff. So, I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm looking forward to it.
Amazing. So, Jerry, like you have said it straight that motivation is kind of unreliable, and uh, discipline is what saves you, right? So, when it comes to mental health, why does structure beat motivation every time? What do you have to say?
I think that
Mhm.
the discipline and the structure by by getting a good habit. A couple years ago, I was laying in a hospital bed, and I was 110 pounds overweight, and I was dying, and I had heart issues, and I was addicted to opioids, and I had all of these different issues, and I figured out that I wanted to live. My grandkids hadn't been born yet, and I had something. I had figured out I had something to live for. It had gotten to that point, and so what I had to do is I had to change everything about my life because the things that I was doing were pulling me back to doing the things I didn't want to do. So, something as simple and as small as I moved a chair, the chair that I would sit in my living room,
Mm.
I moved it to the other side so that I would change up the things that I was doing. And then the next morning, I would get up and I would go to the gym. And I hated going to the gym, but I got up and did it. And at the same time, I went on an all carnivore diet and I started controlling my calories and I lost 100 pounds in 8 months. And once I got started, once I got rolling, it got easier. But that first 30, 40 days was really difficult. And that is the same for be it in business or be it in life. And how do you get through things and how do you survive things? Really, it's getting those habits, and then those habits become a lifestyle. And pretty soon, once you have that lifestyle in place, it will assist you in anything you're trying to do, your relationship at home, your relationship with your wife, with your kids, with your work, the job that you're doing, the gym, with yourself, with your God. It's physically, it's mentally, it's emotionally, it's spiritually. And once those disciplines are in place and that habit becomes a lifestyle in the one thing you're trying to do, it then will cross over and it will help you in all facets of your life. So for me, making these things a lifestyle is akin to just having the discipline to get them started. Because then once you get it started, and once that habit that you force through discipline becomes a lifestyle, it becomes
Mm.
infinitely easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And so like if you have to also say like what does that structure look like in the real life for you? I mean, that daily routine, boundaries, non-negotiables, how?
Yeah, and it's just like that. It's just once you have it in place and you're sticking to it, it becomes second nature to you. I mean, almost like you can't breathe without it. You set your life up around doing the things that you are supposed to do without any judgment on yourself, without any judgment from your family, without any reluctance. See, we constantly fight battles with ourselves. People will say, I can't do this because I want to sit on the couch. I can't do this because I worked a 10-hour day. I can't do this because my physical health is X, or my body feels like Y. There's all kinds of excuses and reasons why we don't do it. I simply don't do that. If you ask me how this manifests itself during the day, for me, I just don't make any excuses. Everything is my fault. Anything that happens to me is my fault. So if I don't get up and go to the gym, and I turn out to get sick later in the day, that's my fault. I mean, even those small connections that may not make any sense, I hold myself responsible for everything that happened to me. I had this epiphany years ago when I was 14 years old. I'd gotten beaten within an inch of my life. My nose was broken, a couple of broken ribs. I'm limping home. And I had an epiphany that said, everything is your fault. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter anything that you touch, whatever it is, it's your fault. Of course, I fought back and I said, how can it be my fault? I'm talking to myself. How can it be my fault in the middle of this epiphany? It said, you're going to be right where you are now, which is like everybody else, if you don't change, if everything doesn't become your fault. And so that epiphany I had when I was 14 years old, again, I'm a street kid. I was living with hookers and heroin addicts in a $25 a week flop house at 17 years old. But it might have taken a decade or so, but that advice I gave myself changed my life. And that is that everything is my fault. So I take responsibility for everything that happens to me, even if I had nothing to do with it. And I'm telling you, that is a freedom that most people don't have because we're so often wanting to blame other people for our misfortune.
I understood. Yeah. I mean, obviously, motivation is a kind of mood, I would say, and structure is just a system. So mental health needs systems and not vibes. So that's very true. And like also, like as I mentioned in the beginning, that you are building the Kronos group around real accountability. So like a lot of people hear accountability and think that punishment or kind of shame, right? So how do you define the accountability in a way that strengthens mental health instead of kind of crushing it?
Well, let me back up and say that it's
Mhm.
important that, I'm not the person that you want to talk to that
Mm.
uses anything as a crutch, meaning that from a mental health perspective, I don't view those things. Life is hard. Life is difficult.
Mhm.
Like I said, like you said in my lead in, I was a street kid. I stole food as a kid to eat. I got my first job at 11 years old. I paid taxes as an 11-year-old, and I pay taxes every year since. I've lived on the street. I've seen multiple murders. I've seen multiple. I myself have, was stabbed with a 10-inch screwdriver in a robbery. Again, beaten more times than I can count. I've lived a life, and so from my perspective, I expect the world to be hard. So my trick to accountability, my trick to responsibility is that everything is my fault and life is hard. So when life gets difficult and something goes wrong and my health breaks down or my family breaks down or the car breaks down or I lose my job or whatever it is, at my level of things that I've done in business, the stress is unimaginable. But I'm able to manage that stress because I expect it. So I look back to the days when we all lived in caves and the family would stay in the cave and you get the fire going and you got your back up against the wall and what's wrong with the world can only come through the front door of that cave. So you can see it, you can expect it, and you can anticipate it. But somebody's got to go outside and go knock a pterodactyl over the head and drag it back, right? So the family can eat. I mean, that's very rudimentary. And so if you don't do that, you're going to die. So the expectation that you can somehow stay in the cave where it's nice and warm with your back against the wall where no danger is going to come at you, I just don't live in that world. I live in the perspective that life is hard. And so in that having that I guess it's an epiphany, but having that realization and living life that way when life gets very, very difficult, I don't curl or I don't turtle underneath of it, I seem to do very, very well because I expect that life is going to throw a punch at me every single day. From an accountability perspective, again, I hold myself to that value. And so holding yourself to that value, that is everything is your fault and that life is hard generally, that's not an excuse to turtle. That's not an excuse to lay down and die. That's not an excuse to do the things that you're supposed to do, that you know you should be doing. Uh, it is holding yourself accountable, is getting up and doing the things that you're supposed to, in spite of
Mm.
whatever it is that you're having to deal with.
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, according to you, what is the difference between healthy pressure and a toxic pressure? Where's the line? And
Yeah,
is
I don't use words like healthy or toxic or
mm,
any of that. I think that's all new age social media created feminization of society. I don't use terms like that. So life again, I'll go back to my previous statement. Life is hard. Start with that premise. And if you start with that premise that life, now look, I've been married for 28 years. I have 3 fantastic kids. I have an absolutely fantastic life. I've changed where I come from, which is a kid from the
mm,
streets that lived that life. And I not only have changed my life, which is institutional generational poverty, but I've changed the life of my children and my grandchildren in doing so. And I do that because I make no excuses for myself. So this you need days off and you need to find self time and time for yourself, and you need to get away from things and you need a break. I don't live by that. And from a business perspective, you wouldn't want to compete with me anyway because I'm the guy that'll answer the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning. In fact, I have a customer that I answered the phone on a Saturday afternoon 20 some years ago. That customer has spent about $20 million with me over the last 20 years simply because I answered the phone on a Saturday afternoon after she had called 3 of my competitors and they didn't answer the phone. So just as an example, I'm the person you don't want to be competing with, but I'm fine with it. My wife is fine with it. My family's fine with it. My time with my family is quality times, not necessarily quantity, and we get that messed up. We think we need quantity when what we really need is quality time. So my approach to the world is that it is going to be hard. And every morning I'm going to get up and do battle just like I'm leaving that cave. So I don't have toxic pressure. There's too much stress. I don't live in that world at all. I don't look at the world that way. Do I have it? Yes.
mm,
Do I think about it? Yes. Are there times that I wish I didn't have to be sitting here dealing with whatever this thing is? And after, a dozen businesses and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, I got stories that I could tell you that would curl your toes. And the average person would have no ability whatsoever. Because you got to remember, inside of all of the things that I've done, I have made more money than I ever thought
mm,
possible, but I have lost more money than I ever thought possible. I've made seven-figure mistakes. Seven-figure mistakes. And so you grow up the way that I do. It was kind of a simple segue into my second life as an entrepreneur and being able to put up with the slings and arrows and the stresses and the sacrifice that being an entrepreneur takes. So I refuse to use those kind of words because I just don't think they have meaning. At the end of the day, how much is the pressure on your life if somebody put a gun to your mother's head and said, unless you perform, and unless you perform at a high level at this thing, I'm going to pull the trigger. Well, we'd all be able to do things
mm,
that we would otherwise think were impossible. But when properly motivated, you can do almost anything you want. The question is, how do you get that motivation?
mm. I agree. Totally agree on this. And like, um, so when someone's anxious or maybe depressed, uh, decision making gets messy. So, what decision rules have helped you stay consistent when emotions are loud and logic is quiet?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a great question. And the thing there is that I'm very analytical. So I'm not emotional at all. My wife will tell you we've been together 33 years. We've been married 28 years. As I said, she's never seen me cry. It's not that I don't cry or I couldn't cry, I suppose. It's not that I don't feel emotion. I'm just not an emotional person. So that is a huge asset to me because in making decisions in business in particular, but in life specifically, for me, there is no emotion. Doesn't mean that I haven't made emotional decisions, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that you're feeling emotional about this. And this is when you need to go for a walk. This is when you need to go find somebody else to talk to about it. This is when you need to maybe detach from it for a little bit and come back if a decision needs to be made, because we will change in business. I've preached this for 25 years to my managers. We will change today what we changed yesterday, and we will change tomorrow what we changed today. But that's very difficult to do because people will put their heart and soul into a project over the course of 3, 4 months, implement it, and the project doesn't work. For me, it's simple. I just go trash it, back to the drawing board with it, put things back the way they were. So they're going to fight back and say, yeah, but Jerry, we did all of this work. We spent all of this time. I go, I know, but it didn't work. So all of this energy that you're putting about fighting for why we should keep it, it simply didn't work. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying it didn't work. Let's not defend the indefensible. Let's not make decisions based on how we feel about this thing. We need to be analytical about it. So it is a mindset for me, again, back to habit, and then it becomes a lifestyle. And so analytical thinking, non-emotional decision making is a lifestyle for me. It can be for anybody. It can be perfected by anybody, but the problem is it doesn't feel good. It doesn't, you're not going to find a lot of commiseration around your friends when you're being analytical, when you're being reasonable, when you're not being emotional. And so that's going to you're going to get ostracized to some extent because people are going to think that you have an ego, or they're going to think that you're all stuffy and you're above them, right? And the reality is that you choose to think differently than everyone else does. You choose to think differently than the average person does. So congratulations to you. You're no longer average. But here the thing is, in the world today, just being average is extraordinary in many cases. So if you want to be different than, if you want a life different than everybody else, you have to be different than everybody else. And that means no commiseration. That means not wearing your feelings on your sleeves. That means being analytical. That means approaching a problem like an adult and tackling it without that emotional baggage, be it in life, be it in work. It doesn't matter what it is, be it in your health, whatever it is your thing is. For me, I now have a lifestyle that results in analytical thinking.
True. Very true. Yep. So, wow. And also, like, is there a question that you ask yourself that cuts through the noise fast, like a personal North Star filter and all something?
Um, Yeah, I mean, not really, nothing specific, but what I would say to that, and the point I want to make, I suppose, to that in a way is it's the internet and social media and podcasting and people out building brands and building themselves. They're not a good reflection, I think, of what the world looks like at scale for most people. Let's take an entrepreneur. Uh,
Hmm.
about 80% of what I see about entrepreneurs online is not true. It's not no world I've ever seen. And I've known thousands of entrepreneurs. I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs. And intimately, I know, I don't know, 50 or 70 millionaire entrepreneurs who started from nothing. And so the world that we see out there is not the world that is actually lived. And by that, I mean that I have tough days. I have days that are hard. I have, you hear me. I'm telling you my philosophy. I'm telling you the way that I work. But the reality is that I have to work at these things. They're not easy. So it's there's not some mantra that I recite in my head that keeps me going forward. Again, back to that lifestyle that I have and this mental lifestyle that I live. But that isn't to say that it's easy. I don't like getting up at 6:30 in the morning and going to the gym, particularly in the wintertime when it's nice and warm under the covers, like everybody else. But I do. I don't like working until midnight or 12:30 most of the nights, but like everybody else does. But I do it, and so I don't want to make it sound like it's just so programmed and I'm somehow abnormal because I'm not. But at the same time, I just look at the world very analytically and I say, this is what's got to be done. I can complain about it and not do it. My life is going to be infinitely harder. Then I'll probably complain more and do less. Or I can just jump on it and get it done. So, no, not a question that I ask myself specifically. But again, it's a constant battle. So I don't want to make it sound like this is easy because just like getting in shape and just like dieting and eating right and just like being disciplined to go to work or school and to achieve the way that you want to, it takes a mindset to get you there.
Mm. I totally agree on that. Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, it's really great because most people uh, don't need more information. I mean, they just need the few decisions and a kind of, I'd say, cleaner framework. So, do you agree on that or what?
Yeah, I think that for sure, people overthink way too much.
Mm.
People want to strategize because people want to be safe. And in
Yes.
and if you want to get anywhere, you want to achieve anything. Let's just say straight mental health. You're
Mhm.
struggling. Well, if you want to get out of that struggle, you have to take a risk. And you have to be willing to live with the results of that risk, meaning you might get hurt more. Well, you got to go into it understanding that that's the secret to entrepreneurship in a way is to a lot of people talk about it. Few people ever pull the trigger because they wait for that
Yeah.
that perfect time, and that perfect time is never going to come. And inherent in jumping and making mistakes is that not only do you learn from that mistake, but you learn that you can survive it. And so, be it mental health, be it your health, your physical health, be it be an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, be it try to be a better husband, a wife, a son, a daughter, whatever it might be, you have to step out off of the ledge. You have to take that
Yes.
risk, and you have to believe that you're not going to die. Not that you're not going to fail, because failure is a part of it, but that you're not going to die. And so I agree that too many people, far too many, hold themselves back because they're not aware of what they're capable of. And this is where I say, I envision the world through someone is holding a gun to my 87-year-old mother's head. And if I don't perform that day at a high level all day long, they're going to pull the trigger. Well, in that context, if we all lived our lives from that basis, we would all do infinitely better than we do.
Mm. True. Very true. So, discipline can become a kind of obsession and structure can become a rigidity also. So, how do you keep discipline from turning into another form of self violence? So, what do you say?
Um, yeah, I don't. You have to give yourself room.
Yeah.
Inside of that discipline, you have to understand that you want a baseline, right? You want a baseline. You can hold yourself. I'll give you a perfect example. You watch online, people talk about, at 7 o'clock in the morning I do this, and 9 o'clock in the morning I do this, and 11 o'clock in the morning I do this, and I do it like clockwork. And that's not my world. Sometimes I just don't feel like getting out of bed and going to the gym early before I go to work. So that means, though, that I got to go to the gym at night. Well, I don't like going to the gym at night as much as I like going to the gym in the morning, but I don't like necessarily getting up and going to the gym in the morning. I don't put any more pressure on myself one way or the other than to go to the gym. So if I miss that deadline in the morning, I'm not beating myself up and I'm not whining and crying about it because I got out of my rhythm or my day's all messed up. I don't do that, right?
Yeah.
I just go to the gym that night. And sometimes I can't make it to the gym because the day changes. And I'm like, okay, that's what you get for not going to the gym in the morning like you're supposed to. And I use the gym as an example. Insert anything that's important to anybody kind of in that spot. And so, yes, I realize it. I didn't follow along with what I'm supposed to do. I got to get back on track tomorrow, but I don't beat myself up too much if I missed that disciplined time frame that I have to use that example of a discipline. Now, look, I'm going to the gym 6 days out of 7, and rarely do I ever miss. But as an example, if I did, that
Mm.
is the way I approach it. I just make it back up, and if I can't make it back up, I leave it behind. I realize what I did. I look at the day. Maybe my day was off and all of that, and I didn't like getting out of that schedule. But at the same time, I don't give it too much thought.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So, yeah, and also like before we move, like, um, what do you do when you fall off? Like, do you reset softly or do you go full drill sergeant?
No, I'm brutal. I'm brutal on myself. And so back to that responsibility thing, when I fall off, I own it. No excuses. Again, I'll go to dieting, right? It's easy to say, yeah, everybody else was eating pizza, so I'm eating pizza. And the reality, and so I ate pizza, but everyone was eating pizza. Again, back to my point earlier, you're either going to be like everyone or you're going to be different than everyone. There's a reason why most people are just average. There's a reason why there's an average. So, in order to not be average, to be above average, to perform greater than the people around you, you have to behave differently. And so, when you do something like, oh, I'm going to eat the pizza, I do it with the full knowledge that I'm eating more calories I want for the day. I'm eating food that I don't think is good for me, but I'm going to sit and you know what it lets me do? Really enjoy that thing that I'm doing wrong. And then I just go right back to it. So I'm pretty brutal with myself in terms of being honest, self-assessing. Self-assessment is critical to success in any endeavor, in particular for mental health, because so often we're judging ourselves against everybody else rather than against ourselves. And I hold myself accountable and critical against my expectations and what I'm doing. So I'm pretty brutal about it, but I don't get too far over my skis because I usually am not making decisions I'm not 100%. I won't even say usually. I never make a decision that I'm not 100% behind, even if it's the wrong one.
Correct. Great, lovely. That's so lovely. So, Jerry, thank you so much for pulling no punches and for bringing the kind of truth that actually changes people, right? So, for everyone who's listening, if this episode hit you in the chest, and then please share it with someone who knows, who keeps waiting to feel ready. And if you haven't yet follow Healthy Mind, Healthy Life and leave a quick review, it helps like more people to find the tools that actually work when life gets heavy. So, Jerry, if someone wants to connect with you, what would be the great medium to connect?
I appreciate it. Yes, I have a new peer-to-peer group that I've just started, has its own community that I'm starting to build. It's
Okay.
the Kronos Group. You can go to the Kronos, Kronos. Kronos was the god of time. So what a great group, or what a great name to put together a successful group of operators and entrepreneurs and people who want to achieve. So the kronosgroup.org, you can find me there. And also anywhere Jerry Brazie, that's Jerry, Brazie. Just look me up and you can find me on all the socials.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links and the details into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host Avik, and this is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Keep building the habits that build you back. So, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.